So sometimes we might have different types of data that we want to store in the same place. So to get around this problem, you might want to use a columnar database. And one of the most popular out there is Apache Cassandra. So Cassandra is a free open source distributed NoSQL columnar data store. And let's go through these terms together. So distributed means that it can run on multiple machines while appearing to users as one unified whole. It's a NoSQL database, which means that we can store different data formats in the same place. And lastly, it's a columnar data store, which means that the data is stored in columns rather than rows. Cassandra runs on a cluster of computers or a cluster of nodes. So each of these nodes are interconnected to each other in a ring architectures, which means that there is no master node controlling the others. And that means there's no single point of failure. So with this architecture, it means that all nodes will play the same role. Thus, all nodes can accept requests no matter where the data is stored. And if one of the nodes fail, another one will just take over. So how does Cassandra store the data? The Cassandra data model follows a hierarchical organization. At the top of the hierarchy is what we call a key space, which is the equivalent of an SQL database. Within that, we can have different column families, which are equivalent to SQL tables. Each column family is an ordered collection of different rows. Each row has something that we call either row key or primary key, which is the identifier for that particular entry. So when creating a column family, we will need to specify each column and its corresponding data type. It is now that we also need to specify its primary key, which will be the identifier of each row. The primary key is also sometimes referred to as the row key. So the row key is divided into a partition key, which is the partition that the data will reside on, as well as a clustering column, which will determine the default sorting of the rows within that partition. So to wrap up, some key things to remember about Cassandra is that it has a schema-free data model, which means that it can store both structured and unstructured data, as well as its own query language, CQL, which is a simplified version of SQL, which stands for Cassandra Query Language. So now that you have learned about the basics of Cassandra, it's time that you start using it.